As a kid on the farm in the 70s, Holdens were everywhere. I loved them. They were my first hot rods. They were my first everything pretty much, which is why we stuck to them when we went mining. We had a fleet of old Holdens. And I guess I was always looking for one last Holden ute. I finally found this one on a farm down at Elora, down near Warwick in Queensland. And it was all there and it was standard. And, you know, Christy and Craig, well, they were keen to sell it too. They're old Holden people. Before long, I got it on the trailer and I've towed it home. And that's pretty much where it's sat for ages. And like all old Holdens and Fords and anything else that doesn't have a full chassis, she had plenty of rust in the wrong places. A lot of people just bog this up, and I thought, no, I want to do this right. I really do. It's got way too much rust. So I started chipping away and cutting here and there, and then I'm out fishing with me mate Bodie from McCormick's, and he said, well, listen, how about we do a bit of a deal here? You know, and it was one of those deals I don't understand, so it was a ripper. But McCormick's, who specialise in all sorts of stuff and have been keeping my trucks going for years, well, they're just old school, you know what I mean? And well, I really like them. There's not many places around that are third generation still on the spanners. The upshoot of all of that is that I pulled everything out of it, got it down to pretty much a shell, rolling shell with wheels, and took it out. And before long, Bodie's got his panel beater guys onto it, and they're doing an awesome job. I've painted all my vehicles over the years, but there comes a time when, you know, it's worth handing it over if you want the right job done. And by crikey, didn't McCormick's do the right job? They went right the way through it. And by the time I saw what they were up to, I thought, there's no way I can do this halfway now. Got to do the whole lot. So I got the upholstery done by a professional team of upholsterers. Nice and simple, kept to the bench seat because I kept to the column shift. And you can bet it was a real proud Roothy that went out to McCormick's to pick up his finished body and upholstery. Thanks, matey. Meanwhile, I've taken the old motor down to my mates at Wynnum Engine Reconditioning, and sure enough, they've done a magnificent job and built me a perfect blueprinted and balanced Holden 202. So I ran it in on the stand at home. You know, you've got to run the cams in on these. But that just left me with this pretty amazing backwards job. I had a perfect body and I had a perfect engine. It was just all the other bits in the middle that needed fixing, cleaning up, sorting out. Boy, you name it. After sitting in a paddock for, I don't know, 20 or 30 years, every bit of rubber was absolutely knackered. You kind of expect that. And all the holes are blocked up with paper wasps. And, you know, it's basically just a flog in, get into it, clean, blow, dust, wash. That's what doing up an old car's all about, I guess. You've just got to get things as good as you can. And in my case, I didn't want to go out buying new stuff everywhere. I'd already done that. What I wanted to do was to make sure that what I had could be used. Now, I was doing all this because COVID had stopped my business. I had plenty of time. But then my mate Dave, well, his business stopped too. So he came on over to give me a hand. What are you doing, mate?
Oh, trying to work out what's to keep and what's to throw away. And keep it to about there, soft, but cracking.
Dave to make the shit go.
Right,
You look like
mate.
Freddie Flintstone there, mate. Look at that. Now, there's about a million things you can find to clean stuff, you know, and you can spend all day down at the tool shop looking for them. But me, I just kind of hooked in with what I had. I mean, with the cross member, it was pretty rough. It needed a bit of work. That big wire brush did it. And then there's all the little things. By this stage, I've spent all my holiday money and I'm salvaging everything I can. Dave's hooking into the ignition, which was a big drama trying to get it all to work.
Little steering wheel, Johnny.
Yeah, right. I think I'll slip over here and fix something else while Dave goes round the twist. But, you know, there's lots of things you're not seeing here. There's at least 3 trips out into the paddocks to find old Holdens, to rate them for bits and pieces, like the little nylon locky thing down the bottom of that. And then it's back to the old routine, just cleaning, and lubricating. I've spent plenty of time working on the fuel system. I want it to be spotless from one end to the other, because that dirty petrol from a dirty tank is usually what stops an old car. Something I know full well. And I'm also going out of my way to save a few quid by reusing all the old nuts and bolts if they're any good. It's not that hard. Meanwhile, I had the gearbox rebuilt out at Northside Transmissions, mates of mine. Did a couple in the day, but much happier letting them do this one. But it got a little bit of surface rust on it while I was waiting, so I cleaned it up. And then it was time for a bit of a trial fit of the new clutch plate. This is a heavy duty clutch because I'm running a high ratio diff. The utes come with really low ratios, which means they rev really high at highway speeds. And I don't think I'm going to be doing a lot of towing, so I thought I'll put the big diff in from the 308 V8. That'll gear it right up and keep it nice and cheap. Got to make sure the clutch plate's on the right way though. And here we go. This is final assembly time, so I'm not making any mistakes. I'm trying hard anyway. That can be hard with me. Everything here, you know, you want to stick it in to make sure it stays. And don't forget, of course, when you work your way around, here's me not making any mess at all, dear, honestly. Not any mess whatsoever. Because I made a promise to the handbrake about the condition of the concrete. You know how these things go. Oh, you never know your luck. Maybe she won't see me. Now, with these sort of clutches, it's really important to get the pivot point nice and smooth. And of course, being an old truck, it wasn't. So I mucked around with that for a while, you know. And here's most of the problem inside the hinge itself. So into it with the little die grinder, get it nice and smooth. It's all about feeling things, oiling things, making sure they'll go in right. And whenever you've got more than 2 or 3 bolts holding something on, work your way around in a pattern. That's always the way to get the tension on right and get things to stay together. So back cleaning up more bolts, of course, and finding the washers and using spring washers everywhere that I haven't used the sticky anyway.
Beautiful.
Make it work.
Look at that.
So this is just cleaning shit up, you know.
You've got a good movement there.
Good movement, eh?
Not so fast.
So seeing as there's no motor in here, there's plenty of room to get about. So I'm pumping all the chassis rails and everything else full of Lanatec. I did this all the way through, to be honest. Every time I got access to something, when it came back from Bodie's, even before I went to Bodie's. I can't resist, I love my Lanatec. Now these are the sort of things you want to pay a lot of attention to. I'm giving the tank one last vacuum cleaner out. I'm putting a lot of effort into getting things like the sender unit to work, you know, because it's such a pain in the backside to put it all in and then find out it's not going to happen. At this stage, it's all just clean and tinker and play with, try and get it right. These days, I mean, we've got the advantage of YouTube and Google and stuff like that, but I tell you what, everything I saw just confused me, especially when it came to the stuff that's really hard in an old Holden, and that's stuff like the ignition lock itself and the way it works. It's different for every model and kind of weird. And I spent a lot of time making sure there's no stress on parts too. So there was a little bit of surface rust back on the flywheel. One last clean up with a nice soft dish. Don't want to make it too tough and don't want any grease or anything on it either. And we're getting very, very close. This is getting to be exciting. It's not going to be long at this rate. Check. Yes. All good. Righto, Dave. Final tension. Here we go, mate. As always, working around. Apply the tension gently and then lock it in. And here we go. Lots of jiggling. Come on, Dave. Jiggle, jiggle. We can do this, mate. We can do this. There she goes. You just feel it click and you know it's right. Goes on the last inch. Perfect. And more bolts to do up in sequence. Never ever lose track of that. Most important thing with old cars and new cars. Get the tension right and work it round. Whoa, just about time to fit some new engine mounts. I was running it in on the old ones. And that just requires a little bit of the same old, Don't screw down anything that's too tight. And finally, here we go. Engine crane's out. Dave and I are ready. We're being so careful. It's not often you whack a new motor into a brand new body. And, the chances for getting things wrong for an old bush mechanic are right up there in terms of scratches and ditches and things like that. But we kept on working at it. We kept on playing, and eventually we got it lined up just about perfect. Well, it has to be. It won't do up if it's not. Next thing's the transmission. And once again, you can see I've got the transmission plate in there. Everything's getting done up one bolt at a time, slowly working your way round. You want the whole lot to come together tensioned instead of one bit really tight and the rest, in the wrong place. This is all the linkage for the 3-speed, the column shift. Look, it makes it look simple, but I think I had that column in and out, I don't know, maybe 5 times just to try and get the action right. But before long, we're filling up the gearbox and, yes dear, no oil on the floor, honest. And I'll tell you what, when you start to get tension on the fan belt, then you know you're getting there. You might have to put a fan on first, and so it's back to cleaning things up. Same old, work your way through. The best thing about this, you can see I'm not wearing gloves. That's because I'm using Citraforce to clean things and Lanatec to grease them up, and a bit of Penrite every now and then. I don't know about the Penrite, but certainly the Citraforce and the Lanatec doesn't do your skin any harm. Here we go again, tightening things by rote. Ooh, this is nearly so close. The fan belt's getting done up. Probably just need to bung a radiator in there, eh, John? Where's that? Oh, fuel lines. Now, with old fuel lines, once you've got them all nice and clean, you've got to make sure you don't force anything. Make sure it's bent perfectly and they fall into place before you even look like tightening them up, or you'll strip them. Oh, there we go. Radiator's in, a brand newie from me mates down at Burson's. Time for a test fire. First start. We've just jerry-rigged it here. A little bit of petrol. This will be the first. Let's see how good this motor is. How good's that? We don't need a muffler, Cookie. It's awesome. But it did go down to me mate Cookie for a full exhaust system and a set of extractors. But meanwhile, before I could even take it there, I had to get the brakes done up. So that was just the usual thing, except helped by the camera in me phone. I took all these photos, as you do these days, don't you? Just so I knew where everything went after a couple of beers. Meanwhile, the handbrake's got some new hubcaps from me mate Bruce, and she's painting them. And finally, here we are. This is it. I couldn't resist. I took it round to me mates at Burson's to show them what all the parts had been for, I guess. These guys are experienced, and it was just fantastic. Just great to share something like this. And so from Burson's, around the corner to Wynnum Engine Reconditioning, because I had to show the boys their work too.
Yeah. Pretty great. Feels like a kid. Give her a rev, bro. Is that okay, mate, if I give her a rev? Oh, nice, Roothy. Beautiful.
They can say that, but they built it. Beautiful job. And here she is. Here's me ute. It's on the road these days. Kazza and I love taking it for runs and whatnot. I reckon as we get older, we're going to be using it more and more. It's too good not to. Good on you, guys.